Good morning. All these loud trucks driving by. I wanted to tell you guys a story today about the 2 times that I led groups into unassigned territory. By the way, both times were disastrous, of course. But I'm going to talk about the second time because it was kind of the craziest one. But up until I took the lead on these assignments, in all the years past, this other brother always led the groups. Probably from 5 to 7 years he'd been taking the groups out to unassigned territory. Now, he got appointed as an elder, and once he got appointed as an elder, he, I don't know, felt like he was too good to do it anymore, maybe. And they kind of passed it over to me. They asked me if I wanted to start doing it. So I said, sure, I was always looking for something new to do. So I was kind of excited about that. Well, all the years passed, this elder had taken people to Effingham, Illinois. We're from Illinois, and it was a couple hours away. And so he would take people to Effingham because it was on the list. And they would make a vacation out of it, and they would go swimming, and they had all kinds of friends down there, and it was a little vacation. I learned real quick that it was very little to do with the preaching work. But when I got the assignment, I received the information from the society, and they gave me a list of places that needed to be worked. And Effingham was on there. But it said that it had been touched last year, of course, because our group had went up there. So I wanted to find a place that hadn't been worked in a long time. So I found Pittsfield, Illinois. It says it hadn't been worked in 5 years. So I chose it, and I started calling congregation members and asking if they would like to come. And I got about 7 to 10 people that said they'd like to go. Well, a couple days into it, I got a phone call from that elder who used to run this assignment. He comes right out of the gate pissed off. Like, he is angry. And he says, I don't understand why you picked Pittsfield. I don't think you know what you're doing. Pittsfield is a podunk area. Black brothers and sisters aren't going to want to preach in that area. And he's freaking out on the phone. He said, we always go to Effingham, and he explained why they go to Effingham and how much fun they have and blah, blah, blah. Well, I explained how these trips aren't really supposed to be vacations, and I picked Pittsfield because it hadn't been worked in 5 years. So he started grilling me about my plans and if I even know what I'm doing and if I thought this through and trying to belittle me. And he told me that, again, that the black brothers and sisters might be in danger in Pittsfield. And I mean, it's just a little podunk town, but this isn't, people know how to handle themselves around black people. It's 2019, for Pete's sakes. So I contacted the other elders to ask them if this was a group issue or if this is just this individual elder that has a problem. I didn't know if he was contacting me in regards to the other elders or if this is just his problem. And of course it was just his problem. So we met, all of us, me and him, the other elders, we met. And he was still raising hell about it during this meeting about going to Pittsfield. And the other elders were trying to calm him down and stuff like that. And I told him, I said, look, I can just not do this. I mean, it's not a big deal. I can stay home. I'll be perfectly happy just staying home. I'm not, I'm not going to lose any sleep of not doing this. And of course, the other elders, no, we picked you. You're going to do good. It'll be fine. So then they asked me to leave the room, the elders' room. And so I left and I went home, and I got a phone call later that day from another elder who told me that they decided that 2 elders will be coming along with me on this trip just to, make sure everything goes well since this other guy had so much of a problem with it and doesn't think I can handle it, they're going to send a few more qualified brothers with me. Just, you know, you'll still be in the lead and everything. We're just gonna send these guys and just, you know, just to make sure everything goes well. So I was, you know, very disappointed by this, and I didn't even want to do it anymore. You know, I was so mad. I'm like, if I'm not gonna take the lead like you guys want me to, then you guys can just go. And I mean, I'm not trying to be cocky about it, but if you guys don't trust me to take the lead, and you're going to send a couple elders that don't even necessarily want to go, because I had asked them if they wanted to go, just as, no, they're going to come to monitor things, I guess. Well, lo and behold, one of these elders that's going is that guy. And so I didn't even want to do it anymore. I was having like sort of like panic attacks and stuff like that, just like shortness of breath and stuff, just from the whole situation, just because I've never dealt with elders in that kind of caliber of anger. And so I literally had to see my doctor before I went on this trip to get some medication to deal with this trip. And could you imagine having to get medication to go on a missionary trip, basically? I mean, it's just ridiculous. So he prescribed me some medicine. I go on the trip. These two elders come with, and they were the biggest pansies and divas on this trip that you could ever imagine. They did not want to stay in the local hotel. They stayed in a fancy historic hotel that was outrageously expensive. Nobody else could afford it, so they just stayed in the local hotel, which was super nice, by the way, ran by a nice local couple. They had like a little bar with like candy and stuff that was just free, like you could just take it, and it was really nice. So I led the group every morning, and I was obviously under scrutiny by these elders. You know, they're watching me like a hawk. So one day I put a group together in this elder's car and gave him an area to work. Now, this is a really rural area. That's the whole point of unassigned territory, right? So I took my group to another area, and the group that I was with, we're driving down roads that are barely roads. You know, it's half of the road is grass, huge holes you have to steer around. And I was in a truck, like a four-wheel drive Dodge Ram, so I was doing okay. We're driving around these giant potholes and stuff, and it was actually kind of fun. You know, that's what you think of when you're gonna do one of these trips. At least that's what I had in mind anyway. Well, this elder that I had put a group with, by the way, I never put them in my group. I never worked with them purposefully. But anyway, he called me and he said, yeah, we decided not to do that area that you asked us to, because the roads are gravel, and I gave him that area on purpose because it wasn't nearly as bad. The roads are gravel. There's actually roads, but they're gravel. You know, the area we were in was barely a road anyway. But anyway, he's like, yeah, these roads are gravel. I didn't want to mess up my car too much. You know, these rocks on this gravel, they can chip up the paint and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm like, I'm under the impression that unassigned territory was about the preaching work. I didn't know we were worried about our cars getting messed up and you know, it was just weird. So I quickly saw that this was not about the preaching work. You know, what they had in mind was a vacation. These guys they wanted to maybe do a little bit of door to door here and there and then just go hang out. But most of the time they were just veering off. Like, they'd call me and be like, yeah, we're at this restaurant, or we're hanging out here or there. And I mean, we hardly got anything done. I remember when I reported back to society what we had done, they're like, okay. But anyway, it was Memorial Day weekend, and they'd be like, yeah, we went up and was watching the parade, and so we didn't get all those streets done, but we got some done. Like, one of the elders' daughters had like beads and stuff from the parade. And what in the world is going on? So anyway, long story short, day 2 of our, I think it was a 4 or 5 day trip. Day 2, these 2 elders left. They just left. They're like, oh, we think you can handle it. One of the guys is like, yeah, we're going to go down to Merrimack Caverns and use the rest of the couple days as a vacation. And we're just going to go down to the caves. And okay, they just left. Said, bye, we're out of here. And so it was just obvious that the one elder that was so mad at the beginning, he knew that I was going to make it into the preaching work, I guess, and wasn't, you know, he wanted to lead so he can make it as a vacation. But anyway, so the last day I only had a couple people left, you know, because they all the elders and their families went home. So I had like 3-4 people left, and they were kind of like, so I'm like, you know what? Let's do this one street and just go home. So we did this street. I had like 4 houses on it. And I'm like, we're going to go home. And they're like, oh, you sure we can do one? You know, now all of a sudden they're ready to go. We can do a little bit more. I'm like, nah, I'm done. So we just hit the highway and went home. And it was like, on the way home, I was like, I'm never doing this again. I told my wife, I was like, these people, you know, unassigned territory that hasn't been touched in 5 years, and it'll never be touched in another 5 years if you got groups like that going down there where you're doing hit and miss houses, and it was just pathetic. So this was the beginning of the end for me, for realizing that this is not where I want to be, you know, as far as being a Jehovah's Witness. And you know, the elders don't care about the preaching work unless the circuit overseer is there. Then they act like that's all they do is the preaching work, and they're all up his butt about it. But you know, they're just frauds and backstabbers and do as I say, not as I do kind of people. But anyway, that's the story I had. Give me your thoughts.